Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all good? I hope so. Y'all listen, let's get into episode 5 of Under the Bridge, and the episode title is When the Heat Comes Down. Episode description reads: Tensions rise as suspicions surround the teens. Rebecca and Cam hatch a plan, but an unexpected detour leads Rebecca down a strange rabbit hole, resulting in a new bond. Under the Bridge is based on actual events. Certain elements have been fictionalized or invented for dramatic purposes. Okay, so we know that episode 4 left off with Rena going over to Seven Oaks to apologize to the girls, well, mostly Joe, about how her dad was acting. So Joe did reverse psychology on Rena and told her how she chose to stay at Seven Oaks and her mom was begging her to stay at home. And if Rena really hated it at home with her family, she knew a way she could get out of it. But Rena had to be a gangster about it. And of course, Rena wanted to, be friends with Joe so bad. She said she could be a gangster. So she went and lied to the house manager and told her that her father had been abusing her and molesting her. Manjit was arrested and Rena was given a room at Seven Oaks. So episode 5 opens up on a continuation of episode 4 with the girl standing in the closet with Joe asking Kelly why. And that's when Kelly says she did it for Joe. Dusty starts hyperventilating and walks out the closet. Joe says to Kelly, "So you just left her there?" And Kelly casually says, "Yep," and walked home. She had no remorse, no nothing. Dusty was breathing so hard, I thought she was going to pass out. So Kelly walks over to Dusty and tells her that she's lucky she did it because it was a favor for all of them. And that in that moment, you can see the fear in Joe's face. And she's realizing that her friend is a psychopath. So Kelly looks at Joe and says, "This is what you wanted, right? This was the whole plan." Joe wanted to say no, but she doesn't know Kelly the way she thought she knew her. So she says, "Yeah." Dusty couldn't believe Joe said yes. So she was about to bounce. And Joe tells her that she couldn't leave. She has to keep it all together because they're family and family looks after their own. Dusty wanted to know how were they supposed to stay there around that crazy tail girl? Then Kelly, she just goes in the closet, gets the boots, and asks Joe if she thought the mud and stuff would come off of it. Joe is just staring at her, but she takes the boots and says, "They're not my size." Then she throws them in the closet, baby, and close the door. And the episodes, they go past and present. So we're going to start in the past and then pick it back up in the present. Okay. Cause y'all know all that back and forth sometimes can be a little confusing. So the past starts with Rena at Seven Oaks and she can't sleep. There's a rainstorm and the scene shows Rena in one clip in bed at Seven Oaks and then Manjit in a jail cell in another clip. She goes into Rena's room telling her that she knew she'll be up because it's hard to sleep on that first night because the first night is the worst. So she gives Rena some juice that has a little extra some in it. And she tells Rena, "Let's get effed up." And Rena, she just giggling. And I'm like, "Rena, how are you over there laughing and you lied on your father like that? Like that's some weird energy right there." So Rena and Joe, they lit, baby. They sloppy. Joe tried to teach Rena how to make the CMC finger sign. They creating something together. They all loud and giggly. And Joe asked Rena, what did her dad's face look like when he got cuffed? Rena says, "I wasn't there." But she asked Joe if she felt bad when she made up all the stuff that her mom's guy friend did to her. And Joe said that, "I didn't make it up." Now over at the jail, an officer goes to get Manjit and tells him that it's time for his bail hearing. Then he gonna say to Manjit, "What is it with you Indians? Always hitting your kids." I'm like, man, just take them up there and do your job. We don't need to hear what you got to say. So the judge is calling out Manjit's charges, and they were child endangerment, battery against a child, SA, and counseling a child to touch for sexual purposes. His wife bailed him out. She acted as the surety, and he was ordered to not have any contact with Rena. The judge asked Suman where would Manjit be staying, and she said with her at home. And the judge said, "Well, that means that your daughter would have to stay in foster care." So now Suman's mother was there and she tapped her on the arm and told her, you have to choose your daughter. Remember, Suman's parents were never thrilled about her marrying Manjit. So Suman told the judge that she understood, but she believed her husband. Child, her mama got up and told the husband to come on. She was like, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm leaving. Now over at Seven Oaks, Joe, Kelly, and Dusty are downstairs watching TV. And Rena comes down and tells Joe that she thinks she's, got a hangover. Then she throws the CMC sign up at Joe. Kelly says, what the F was that? And Rena says, that's a CMC sign. Me and Joe made it up. Kelly sits up and says, you're not CMC. Only we are. Now Dusty sitting over there smirking because she know that Kelly is getting jealous. So Joe, she's sitting over there acting like she all into the Family Guy, but she hear what's going on. So Kelly says, you might live here now, but I'm Joe's best friend. Rena ignores Kelly and tries to sit in between her and Joe. Joe puts her hand down and says, CMC only. And she tells Dusty to come and sit in that spot. I was like, baby, Joe's so fake. Now, Rena is looking at Joe all confused. But girl, why are you looking like that? How many times does this girl have to show you that she don't really care about you like that? It's all an act. So Rena storms out the room. And the next thing we see is Rena walking up to her house. She's hesitant, but she walks on up and knocks on the door anyway. Majid hears the knocking. He gets up and sees Rena at the door. She says that she was there for a warmer jacket and some clothes, but he tells her that he can't let her in because he don't know what she might say to the police. He let her know, I don't trust you anymore, Rena. And he asks her to leave. So she walks to the end of the walkway trying to light a cigarette, but she couldn't. But while she was doing that, he opened the door and set some clothes out there for her. Later in the evening, Rena, she's back at Seven Oaks. She's writing a letter to the Crown, letting them know that she had made a mistake. But then Dusty walks in and apologizes for ditching Rena earlier. Rena says, I guess you're a CMC now. And Dusty let her know, nah, they ain't let me in, but they let these other girls in that we barely know. And they put Warren on the list too, even though they said no boys were allowed in CMC. Then Dusty drops Rena's mom's earrings on the dresser and says that she found them in Joe's bag. So Dusty and Rena decide, you know what, we don't need them. We can form our own gang. So the next day, we see Dusty walk to this apartment complex and her sister lives there. And she's there begging her sister to come back home. She says she didn't want to live at Seven Oaks anymore. She'd do anything. But then you hear this little girl say, Mommy, no. And Dusty, she keeps pleading with her sister. But then there was a knock at the door and it was Officer Cam. Dusty thought that Officer Cam was there because of the Rena situation, but it was because her sister had a protective order against Dusty because Dusty had pulled a slicer on her daughter. Okay. So Officer Cam took Dusty down to the station. Dusty tells Cam that she know that Dusty, Dusty tells Cam that she know that Rebecca is playing with them. Like she playing us. And Officer Cam says she don't know nothing about that. Only thing she know is that y'all been calling down to this station. And she played back all of their recordings saying that Warren did it. But in Dusty's call, she said that Warren told her that he did it. Officer Cam asked if Kelly told her to say that. Dusty said that what she said about Warren wasn't a lie. So Officer Cam said, okay, well, tell me how he did it. And did he even know Rena Burke? Then Officer Cam pulled out this drawing that they got out of Kelly's notebook. She tells Dusty it's interesting that Kelly has a long history of violence, but she's never been expelled. But Dusty, you've been expelled 3 times. She wanted to know if Kelly told her to make that call and was she protecting Josephine. Officer Cam, she tried to relate to Dusty by telling her girls like us, we can't get angry. But Dusty didn't like that. She was like, don't act like you know me. And since Dusty didn't want to give Officer Cam any info, she pulled out a witness statement and she told her whoever name you write on that statement, they are going to get arrested. They're going to spend the rest of their lives in jail. And she told her, if you lie, Dusty, you're going to be in trouble. And, you know, don't think that what's going on with your sister is irreparable. You can change that. But you better not F your life up for these girls. So Dusty fills out the paper, but she still put Warren's name on it and told Officer Cam to drop her off a block from Seven Oaks. Now, at Seven Oaks, Joe is standing on the balcony and she sees a cop car pass by. And then a minute or two later, she sees Dusty walking up. And you can see it in Joe's face that she's putting two and two together, right? So that's everything for the past. Now, let's move over to the present, okay? So, in the present, the scene opens at Rena's funeral. Like they have a beautiful ceremony, very small and intimate. Once the service is over, Rebecca and Raj, they walk outside. He introduces her to Manjit and Suman and tells them that Rebecca is the writer that he was telling them about, the one who was writing a story about Rena. Suman wanted to know what was she going to write about Rena, but Rebecca said that she was still trying to find her way with the story, but she felt like people should know Rena for who she was and not for what happened to her, and that she would love to try to understand Rena the way Suman did. And Suman responds and says, I didn't understand Rena. Sorry. And then she walks off, and Manjit and Raj, they follow behind Suman. But Rebecca looks over and she sees Officer Cam and she follows her into the bathroom. And Officer Cam tells Rebecca that she looked into what Raj told her in regards to why Manjit was arrested. And she found out that it was not true. And it looked like the girls put Rena up to lying on her father. Officer Cam says that she is tired of playing telephone games with these little girls. She needs some real evidence. So Rebecca tells her to use the press. Use the press to scare them, spook them a little bit, and watch them start messing up. Officer Cam asked Rebecca to keep talking to the girls to see what she could get out of them. So then you see the chief walking up to talk to the press, and they were asking him if it was gang related, and they wanted to know if there were any leads since it had been about 2 weeks, and if race could have been a motive for her attack. The chief wants to downplay it being a race issue and says that they are a multi-race community. They accept everyone. Officer Cam chimes in and says, we are not eliminating that it may be a race factor. She also told the press that a group of girls who Rena considered to be her friends were involved. Now, while Officer Cam is talking, the scene cuts to Joe and Dusty at the Seven Oaks house watching the news conference looking scared. Then it shows Warren and his girlfriend at her job watching it and they look worried. But then when they get over there to Kelly, she's sitting over there watching it, eating candy, swinging her feet back and forth. That baby is unbothered. I'm telling y'all, the girl's a psychopath. The chief, he ain't happy. He is not happy that Officer Cam told that to the reporters. So he wanted to know what was all of that about when it came to motive about race. Like, why would you say that? Officer Cam said Rena had a cigarette burn in the middle of her forehead. That was done because of race. She also let him know that she talked to the officers that arrested Manjit and she found out that Rena refused to let the officers examine her, even after telling the house manager that her dad had tied her to a chair and hit her with a hammer. And the chief doesn't want Cam to make the cops out to be the bad guys. And then he brings up how they found her, talking about Cam, covered in bruises. And to me, that was a real trash move because he was deflecting and he tried to use her trauma to sway her opinion about the investigation. Now, over at Rena's home, the news reporters, baby, they pulling up. The phone ringing off the hook. So Manjit turns on the TV and he hear the reporter say that Rena's relationship with her parents had grown distant months prior and that her father had been accused of SA. So then we see the girls arrive at school. There are news reporters all outside the school. They in the school, going through lockers and everything. They pulled a notebook from Kelly's locker that kind of looked like her math notebook until they start flipping through it and saw some drawings Kelly had made. Even one with a picture of a girl who looked like Rena, and there was a hand holding a cigarette near her face. Now, while Officer Cam is looking through the notebook, Joe, Kelly, and Dusty are looking at her. Then Joe grabs them and pulls them out of the school. But then Rebecca pulls up and tells them that the officer who was on the news is an old friend of hers. And she told her that the cops were circling all three of them. And if there was any chance of them getting out of that mess, they better get in that car. So Rebecca takes the girls to get something to eat. She tells them that the cops are going to try to arrest as many of them as they can. But the girls want to know, why should we believe you? You could have been the one that ratted us out. And Rebecca says, if I ratted you out, why would I be here? So Joe asks Rebecca, what exactly should they do? And Kelly says, look, we can go to Mexico. That's what the gangsters do. The gangsters do that. They go to Mexico. So Rebecca tells them that there was a ferry leaving out the next day and she could drop them off. But if they had any evidence with Rena's DNA on it, they needed to get rid of it because that's not something they needed to get caught with. And she could get rid of it for them. So everybody was looking at Kelly. Baby Kelly ain't say nothing about them shoes. She just said, if we're going to run, we need cash. So Rebecca looks at her wallet. Kelly snatched the wallet, took the money out and said $60. But Kelly said she knew where they could go to get more money. And she asked if Rebecca could drive them there. So Kelly has Rebecca to drive them over to where the Crips hang out. Everybody gets out besides Rebecca. She was just gonna, sit there and wait. But then Kelly gestures, for her to come on in. So they go in, she see Warren and she says, what's up? The dude who I'm assuming is the head honcho, the Don, asks Warren if he knew her. And Warren said, yeah, she alright. Then Kelly says, she smells like bacon to me. The Don stands up and says, what you say, Kelly? Kelly was like, I'm just saying, she hangs out with cops. Joe and Dusty are looking at Kelly like, what are you doing, girl? Are you crazy? So all the guys get up and start circling around Rebecca and ask her if she was a cop. And she said, no, I can prove it. They were like, how? She said, she'll smoke a little with them. They started laughing and were like, baby, that's the most cop thing you could ever said. Warren, he's getting nervous because he know what could possibly happen. So he gets up and says, let me pop one with her. Cops won't go that far, right? So he pops some candy and then gives one to Rebecca. She takes it and they was like, yeah, nah, she ain't no cop. Now Kelly is watching all of this and she gets mad and storms out. So Joe and Dusty follow behind her and they want to know, what's up with you, girl? Rebecca was going to help us. But Kelly wants to know, what's wrong with y'all? If I remember correctly, Joe, you said that we couldn't trust nobody, that we could only trust each other. Kelly is like, F Rebecca. She probably going to take those boots straight to the cops and she's not going to help us get to Mexico. Dusty was like, wait, y'all were really serious about that? What about our families? And Kelly had to remind her, we are each other's family. You don't have a family, Dusty. So she says, we're going to have to pin this on somebody. And Joe was just standing there looking at Kelly like she had 3 heads. So Kelly picks up the payphone and calls the police station and says that she was at the shore that night and saw someone following Rena. And she said that it was Warren Glowatsky. So the girls left and Rebecca is just sitting in her car trying to come down from her high. She called Cam to let her know that the girls ditched her, and in the midst of her trying to get them to trust her, she took it a little bit too far. Then she started the car, and I was like, girl, where are you going? You can't drive like that. You can't even see your hands. So she turns the car off and looks out the passenger side window, and she sees her brother Gabe. She's hallucinating. He says that the candy is really kicking in, huh? And he tries to get in. She gets scared only for her to realize it was Warren. And he tells her that he doesn't think she should be driving. And that she can come back in the warehouse It's warmer in there. But she says that she's okay. She just need a minute. She said, I need a minute, Gabe. And Warren, he doesn't say anything. He just nods and, goes back in. Eventually, Rebecca goes in. She's laying on the floor, and Warren is telling her that he wasn't supposed to be born because his mom had her tubes tied. He said that his girlfriend's mom told him that God has a purpose for him, but he feels like he was a mistake and that the world would be better if he wasn't around. Rebecca said she felt that way too, and he wanted to know why. And she said when she was 13 years old, her brother drowned in the ocean. And she always felt like it was her fault because she always wondered if she could have done something to save him. And I guess since Rebecca revealed such it's something that precious, Warren felt compelled to tell her that he knew what happened to Rena and that he watched her die. So Warren is telling her what happened at the bridge. He said that it was him and Kelly wanted to see if Rena was sorry. He said Kelly started kicking Rena in the head and in the ribs. He told her to stop, but she just kept kicking her. Then Kelly grabbed her by the shirt, and once he said she, the scene then cuts back to Seven Oaks. Kelly and Joe are in the bathroom, they lighting it up. And all of a sudden, Kelly starts laughing. And Joe asks her what was so funny. She said that she put her foot on Rena's neck after she put her in the water. And she held her under. She smoked a whole cigarette while doing it. Now, while Kelly is doing all this talking, Dusty was in the shower, right? Then she got out. And then she heard Kelly say that she knew by the time she finished her cigarette, Rena would be DEAD. So Dusty lost it and started wailing on Kelly, and she broke her nose. The house manager comes in to see what was happening, and she pulls Dusty out of the bathroom. Josephine, she was just sitting over there, scared. Josephine ain't as hard as she pretends to be. So then she tells Kelly that she feel like they can't trust Dusty. She might crack and tell the cops, and that she might have already snitched. So Josephine tells Kelly that they have to do something about Dusty. So they go tell Dusty that they have to pack. And she was like, for what? Where we going? She said, because we're going to Mexico. I was like, Dusty girl, don't you go nowhere with them. Do not go anywhere with those girls. And if you do, you better let Rebecca or Cam know what's up. But yeah, y'all, that was episode 5 of Under the Bridge on Hulu. Get down in the comments. Let me know if you watched the episode. What did you think about it? And I'll talk to y'all later.